Now there was no water for the congregation, and they assembled themselves together against Moses and against Aaron. And the people quarreled with Moses and said, "Would that we had perished when our brothers perished before the Lord? Why have you brought the assembly of the Lord into this wilderness, that we should die here, both we and our cattle?"
40 years have now passed. You are now 120, and still leading this mixed multitude of a congregation. The children that were carried on the backs of their parents to the base of a blazing Mount Sinai now had children of their own, and the older generation were just a memory. You think about the fact that you barely had time to mourn the death of your sister Miriam, and by now the wind had blown over her grave, making the spot look like the desert had simply swallowed her. Aaron's wrinkled face reminds you of your own mortality, each line like a tally mark announcing that leadership comes with a cost. You had paid the price for 40 long years. Still, there was work to do. Surely the gate to the promised land was near, and surely rest was finally coming. So much had changed, and yet everything feels the same. The same doubts, the same complaints, the same fear disguised as anger. And again the people stand before you with parched lips and bitter words, and the cries begin. Why did you bring us out here? Why did you drag us into this wilderness? Why didn't you leave us in Egypt? You feel something inside you shift. This wasn't the naive panic of the generation that died in the sand. This was their children, raised on miracles, raised on manna, raised on the pillars of cloud and fire, speaking like they had never seen God at work at all. For 40 years, God had brought water from nowhere, bread from heaven, protection from enemies, forgiveness after failures, and yet, here they were, acting as if faithfulness had meant nothing. This generation had never even felt the whip of slavery, and yet so entitled. Your constant care for them, taken for granted, cheapened to nothing more than just commonplace labor. Their voices echo, their accusations pierce. Not just complaints against God anymore, but complaints against you, the leader, the shepherd, the one who had stood in the gap more times than they'd ever know. Even before offering your own life in place of theirs, if it came down to that, you're willing to do it all. And this time, you aren't fearful of the growing mob. You just feel tired. Too old for this, you think. Tired of explaining. Tired of believing for them. Tired of carrying a faith they refuse to hold themselves. So you go into the tent of meeting, like you always do. Face to the floor. Aaron's bones cracking as he joins you in consecrated humility. The glory comes down like it did many times before. And God speaks.
"Moses, take the rod, you and your brother Aaron. Gather the congregation together, and speak to the rock before their eyes, and it will yield its water. Thus you shall bring water for them out of the rock, and give drink to the congregation and their animals."
Speak to the rock. No dramatic showdown. Speak to the rock. All that was now needed was trust, obedience, and a quiet faith. Now, as you found yourself outside of the tent of meeting, you noticed that the shouting of the people got louder as their patience continued to wear thin. The complaints were getting sharper with each step you take through their midst. Their frustration now becomes heavier, and the command now feels too small for the size of the problem. Speak to the rock. Too gentle for the strength of their unbelief. You feel that more is required, and perhaps more is necessary. And then before you realize it, something inside you snaps. You feel the anger rise. These people, holy? Maybe. Human? Definitely. Now standing before the rock, you raise your voice a few decibels in order to be heard above the mumbling crowd, and instead of speaking to the rock, you speak to the people.
"Hear now, you rebels! Must we bring water for you out of this rock?"
It all happened so quickly. The must-we slipped out without permission. You always knew that they had a rebellious nature, but never did you stoop so low as to call them that in anger. And with it, ownership slid where it didn't belong. It wasn't you that was going to provide water. This was a task reserved for God alone. Before realizing it, the staff you raised now comes down and strikes the rock not once but twice. Water gushes out, yes. Needs are being met, yes. The problem was solved, yes. But heaven went quiet. The people were pleased, but the glory of God that deserved to be honored was now shattered. a lifetime of faithfulness, and in a single moment, fatigue collided with frustration and produced disobedience. Not because you believed that God couldn't do it, but because you were tired of the burden of representing him to a people that were blind to seeing it. All right, Garrett, we are back. We have had a long hiatus. We have to explain that to our listeners because it's been like a month almost.
I'm sorry. We've been delayed and with good intention. There's been a lot going on, and one of which was GYC, right, Jermaine?
Yeah, that's right. We were at GYC in Orlando, Florida, and I had the honor of speaking for the evening plenary meetings, and I'm very appreciative of the many friends that prayed for me during that time. I feel like the Lord worked.
He did.
And I'm very humbled by that opportunity. And we also had a seminar. Can you tell our listeners about that?
Yes, we had a seminar. We got to meet a lot of you there. At the time of this recording, the seminar hasn't been released yet on Audioverse.
I haven't seen it, no.
But it will be at some point. So if you missed that, you can take a look there on Audioverse. But it was so great to meet so many listeners and get out some merch as well.
Yes, that's right.
And GYC, just in general, the atmosphere was incredible. The Holy Spirit was there.
I was so blessed, man. I was so blessed. And very encouraged. After I left, I was like, man, we looked at each other. We were like, that's such a cool experience.
Yeah, and we've been to GYCs before. But it wasn't just the numbers, and I think it was the largest GYC in history up to this point as far as attendance. But just the youth that were sincerely looking for a spiritual feast.
And we had, and we must highlight this too, we had so many wonderful conversations and discussions. And if you're listening to this episode, you know that we're talking about you now.
Yep.
It was such a rewarding time. Those of you who stopped us and asked us questions and engaged with us, those were just very, very, very encouraging experiences, and we're very touched by it. So thank you.
Yeah, and a huge shout out to the GYC Ecom team. Andrew Park, Kelsey Unruh, Josh On, Stephen Lee, Thomas Mayhew,
Junior Verdes,
the treasurer that just changed hands. Allison is no longer there. Anna Wood.
That's right.
I'm not missing anybody. I don't know the new Ecom members' names, but the current executive or Ecom just did a phenomenal job, and they're not often seen.
Yeah.
So just a huge thank you. And I'm in the middle of a move too.
Yeah. You're going to a new church district?
Yeah, I'll be in Detroit Metro. In fact, I am in Detroit Metropolitan Church now.
Yeah, but you haven't moved home yet.
Yeah, I move on Sunday. But anyway.
And then we're currently right now at Andrews University taking a class. We're both enrolled in the MAPMIN, the Masters in Pastoral Ministry. And so we're trying to wrap things up. We're in a class together this week, and we're like, we can't wait any longer. We're just got to get episode 10 out so we can wrap up season 2 and get ready for season 3.
Yeah, so without further ado, we need to jump into this episode about Moses, and he is ending his, I don't want career, but his ministry as leader, as prophet, as miracle worker, as judge, as mediator. The list
so many
goes
things,
on.
yeah. And we might say he goes out with a bang.
Yes, a couple of them.
So we'll go to orient our audience. We are in Numbers 20 now.
Yep.
And there's a lot that we're going to be talking about. There's a lot that's happening in our world, and we're going to get to that in a little bit as we continue. But we kind of have to give this setup to this, to what we see here in Numbers chapter 20. Moses had some significant life-changing, life-altering experiences. It's been 80 years in the wilderness. 40, the first that he signed up for. I would imagine that in his mind, this was it, right? Point A to point B, simple task, get it done. Couple weeks, yes. But it takes 40 years. And not only that, it takes another 40 because of disobedience. And so I don't know about you. I mean, what is usually your response when you experience delays?
Yeah, I am a very on-time person. Time is very important to me. And when there's a delay, especially when there's something that I'm looking forward to, right? It's very easy for me to grow impatient, not just with myself, but especially those that delay me. Usually have naturally a little more patience with myself, right? But when other people are delaying, that can be really frustrating. And Moses has already spent his 40 years in the wilderness, and now he's got an extra 40 tacked on to that. And the kind of leader that Moses has been practically impeccable. He has dealt with, the rebellion at Korah, which we'll talk about today. He's dealt with the rebellious sons of Aaron that committed horrific sin in the presence of God. And speaking of which, he dealt with the golden calf as well. So Moses has gone through it. And in Numbers chapter 20, just for a little bit of context, Miriam, the sister of Moses, which was, she caused some trouble in the biblical narrative for sure. But she was also very much a support for Moses. Miriam in this section of scripture has passed away, and Miriam has already been buried. And so Moses is fresh off the mourning of his sister, and he is still dealing with a people group that are complaining and upset and angry. And it's not just the older crowd, but the younger crowd, the ones that have been born in the wilderness, are starting to pick up on bad habits.
That's correct. Numbers 20, verse 1. Let's jump in.
Sure.
Then came the children of Israel, even the whole congregation, into the desert of Zin in the first month, and the people abode in Kadesh. And Miriam died there and was buried there. One of the things that stand out to me here, Garrett, is that word Zin.
Yeah, we're not talking about nicotine pouches.
No.
We're talking about something else.
Nicotine. I did not know that. Zin.
Somebody does.
Yeah, somebody does. Actually harkens back to Exodus 15.
Yes, it does.
And the name of that word is actually, and I don't know if you thought about this in particular, but to me it stood out. The fact that we're coming back. So there's an element in the story that says we're coming back to something that has been. Right. Moses is going to face something that he's probably has dealt with in the past.
Right.
So this harkens back to what Exodus 15 is after the Red Sea, right? This is a significant moment.
Yep.
And right after the Red Sea is when the children of Israel complain about, their experience, right? The food, the water, and all that stuff, which again kind of mirrors back. But that word zin, you know what it means?
I don't.
It means to prick.
Hard to kick against the pricks, right?
Yeah, literally thorn.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's very interesting. Like Moses, they're right on the border of the promised land, but they're at a place that is going to be very thorny for Moses. Mm-hmm. So maybe some of the thorns that one might imagine here as well. The first thorn is dealing with the death of Miriam.
Right. And we're used to the children of Israel complaining, and we've talked all season about this, right? The congregation, which, by the way, in the verse we just read, it references them as the congregation now. So I think that Moses has succeeded in calling them a congregation and leading them through this rebellion. But we're used to the children of Israel complaining about basic things needed for life, right? So food, we talked about the quail. We've talked about their lack of water in the past as well. And so not only are they circling back to a place, but they're circling back to
old habits,
the same old problem, the same old habits, and the same old lack of faith in God that, by the way, is still raining manna and is still protecting them from the heathens, for lack of a better word, that have attacked the people of God. And so God is not necessarily the one that is outlined as frustrated in this story, but now it's Moses.
Yeah.
Moses is upset, and in verse 2 we see why.
Yeah, and man, you mentioned something there, that idea of congregation, and we've been following that all the way through the storyline. And you see images and mirrors of the church a lot in the Exodus story.
Totally.
But when you think church, you don't see the behavior doesn't match what God expects, right? And it's interesting to me that they're in a thorny place and the church is about to get thorny.
Yeah, nothing has changed, right? Yeah. And I think it's interesting. Yeah, you bring up the connotation between the two, the church then and the church now, nothing changing. There's a risk of famine, but when the people are faithful to God, there's no risk of famine.
No, there's none. Yeah.
There's no risk of a drought because they're with God. God is there. I really do believe that there's a famine in the world today, spiritually speaking.
I think so.
Like God's word is not broken and feasted upon as it nearly should be, which is why experiences like GYC are such an incredible thing for us, right? Because there's not a famine happening there.
No. The verse I think of when you mentioned that is Amos 8.
Exactly.
Where it says, there will be a famine in the land, a famine of hearing the word of God. I think so. I think, and maybe, you and I have these conversations, just us outside of the podcast space.
Sure.
And we see it happening a lot. Like, we're pastors, and just on a personal note, there are times where I wish that our members, we're both Adventists. We just wish our members actually took time to understand the Word of God, to study it, and to be fed, right? And I think part of that thorny experience comes as a result of that lack of knowledge, lack of what God can do, lack of how He leads, and lack of trust in His character and who He is. And I don't know about you, but I feel like even now, like more than ever, I see the church reflecting the thorns of society.
Yeah. And we've talked about that. We as a people, and I'm going to include myself in that, just like Daniel did in Daniel chapter 9.
We have sinned. Yeah.
We have sinned. And trust me, I've fallen into this too, so I rightly belong there. But we have definitely pandered to the idolatry of the world around us, in that we have doubted God, and we've had replacement gods, whether it's on the political spectrum, which we'll allude to briefly today, I'm sure, whether it is, sports, whether it's a false gospel. There's lots of false gospels that are blowing around, winds of doctrine in the world today as well. And so, yeah, there is a famine and there's a drought, just like you said there in Amos. However, we have ready access to the living water.
Yeah.
He is communicating. He's around us today. However, we complain. We complain a lot.
Yeah, and it's funny, right? Because I don't know if I've ever told you this, but and it's like a very silly example. But I remember, growing up in Jamaica, I watched all these Western movies, back then before my conversion and all that stuff. And I used to like one of the imagery of the Western, the classic imagery.
Yeah, like the spaghetti Westerns.
Yeah. Before there's a fight, there's always a tumbleweed blowing by,
Uh-huh.
It's like, I remember seeing one for the first time, man. I was so excited. I'm like, there goes a tumbleweed. But the thing about wilderness is that there's a lot of dryness. The arid area doesn't not provide for food, right? Nourishment and all that.
Let
all those
alone
things.
this many people.
Yes, and what you find more of in the wilderness is actually more thorns, right? And it's crazy, right? Because the story of the Exodus is it's essentially everywhere these people went, God was their oasis if they only turned to Him. So the wilderness outside doesn't have to impact your experience in the sense of you don't have to be a wilderness yourself. Right? You don't have to be a part of it. And I think going back to what you're saying about the church, I think a lot of times is our lack of knowing and understanding how God is leading and where He is in terms of His location and proximity. We become as dry as the world around us.
Totally.
And people come into our church and guess what? They expect to find roses and wonderful plants, life-giving things, but they find thorns and they get hurt by it.
Yeah, and like you said, the danger is when we are living in a wilderness, which I believe we are, spiritually speaking, right? But when we are so spiritually dead that we start seeing mirages and we think that we're in a place that actually is conducive to life. Yeah. That's deception, right? And so I think it's a healthy thing, just like in the book of Exodus, it talks about the scenario of the wilderness like you did. It is in direct contrast with the land of promise.
That's right.
And so the children of Israel are never not reminded of the harsh environment they're in, and that's supposed to drive them to want to go to the promised land, right? Yeah. And however, for us, I think sometimes we lose sight that we are in a hostile environment, and this world is not our home, right? And yet some of us are seeing mirages and where we're very comfortable settling into the environment that this world is giving to us today. So when you get disturbed about the harsh environment, spiritually and physically speaking, that we're in right now, it should serve as a reminder to us that
this is not our home.
We shouldn't be satisfied here.
Yeah.
But the children of Israel are starting to settle in a little bit.
Yeah, no.
So verse 2, right?
Yeah, verse 2. So after Miriam dies, the scene now, and I would imagine that the heart of Moses is is hurting.
It's heavy.
Right? And it's interesting because we just jump to the next verse. There's no time to mourn. There's no time to grieve, to go through the process of grief, the stages of grief. There's none of that.
Yeah.
It just goes to the next verse. It's kind of like Miriam dies on a Friday. Moses shows up on church on a church on a
like
Sabbath.
That, doesn't it?
Like that's what it seems like. Verse 2, and there was no water for the congregation, and they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron.
Read 3:2.
Verse 3, and the people chode with Moses and spake, saying, would God that we had died when our brethren died before the Lord.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot there.
There's a lot there. That word quarreled there in Hebrew it's a technical
There's
word.
quarrel meaning chode, right? My King James version is like the old
chode, quarreled, same thing. It implies it's a formal accusation. And so the people are not just, whispering in their tents, but they have come together and they have called Aaron and Moses to task. And they're basically saying the court, or the people's court, has found you guilty of being negligent again.
Moses was, being thrown into the court of public opinion.
Exactly. Which,
by the way, the court of public opinion is a very hostile place, dude.
yeah, it changes on a dime, doesn't it?
It is so unstable. It is like the wilderness.
It's crazy work, man. People that have often dedicated their life to God are torn down in an instant and thought of as nothing.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen. I know you have too.
Well, you mentioned that you see it. I see it happening now, right? I find it very hard going on Facebook, for example, right? Or, and I know we mentioned this before, like some of the YouTube videos, people are being accused of things. You're like, bro, that's not true.
Yeah.
But then people run with that stuff and you're like, yeah, the court of public opinion, man. It's like the nature of it is rebellious.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, we all like to be the whistleblower, the one on the wall that's sounding for danger. But if all you do is sound danger and you're never down in the trenches defending the people of God, all you're doing is just making a noise, right? Like, okay, if you're so focused on being a whistleblower, why don't you get down in the trenches and actually do something, right? Like, you can wag your tongue as much as you want, but have you ever, when's the last time that you were involved in winning a soul? Because I'll tell you this, I haven't seen many souls won on the chats of Facebook, right? In fact, a lot more harm has been done than good. Now, I'm not saying social media can win people to Jesus. What I'm saying is in those subsections, right?
Yeah.
But Moses, like you said, Moses and Aaron are, for nothing that they have done, they're being torn down by public opinion after 40 years of faithful service. And Moses saying, if it's between you and them and me, take me. That's the kind of love that Moses has.
There's the brother that was willing to give up his own eternal salvation
and now the mutiny.
For these people, like one of the sermons at UIC dealt with this theme, but to me it's fascinating, right? The commitment of Moses, which is not understood by the very people that he's leading, right?
Yep.
He's dedicated 80 years of his life. Right, 80 years, right? Not 80, 120, the entire thing, right? Because he killed the Egyptian at 40.
Sure.
He's always been thinking of the Israelites during his tenure in Egypt. So all of the man's life has been dedicated to this. And yet still, not a single aspect of that is understood, taken into consideration. The accusation, and one of the things that I really struggle with here is the accusation never changed towards him. Right?
No, it's the same thing.
You're thinking, if you think about this, these are the people that we're talking about here in Numbers 20. They're a totally new generation.
Yep.
Which means that they've borrowed from their forefathers.
Bad habits have been learned.
Yeah, and to me, imagine, man, God, literally, the text highlights the fact that, Miriam was buried in the wilderness, but also there are many that died.
Yeah.
Were also buried in the wilderness. And so we have a new generation, and they come with the same song, dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's a song. They're definitely singing the blues, and they're singing accusations. And by the way, pause. I think that people that are of leadership should be held accountable.
For sure.
And we're going to see that especially in this story.
For sure.
Because God holds his leaders accountable. But, man, when there's just a bunch of nitpicking that's happening all the time about everything that's ever said, get in the arena.
Do something.
Do something. But, we talked about this same old song. You can read it from 3 to 5, and it's very redundant, right? So we won't go to that because we've covered this. But verse 6, notice the response of Moses and his brother Aaron. Then Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting, and fell on their faces, and the glory of the Lord appeared to them, and the Lord spoke to Moses.
All right, before we get there.
Yeah, please.
Verse 5. A part of the accusation is they kind of clarify for Moses, and wherefore have you made us to come out of Egypt? So again.
Yeah, same thing.
Same thing. Back to Egypt. That's where they want to be, to bring us unto this evil place It is no place of seed or of figs or of vines or of pomegranates, neither is there any water to drink. So it does show you where their eyes are,
Yeah.
right? They're looking at the wilderness and they're like, bro, the place is still not ideal. No matter the fact that they're very close to the promised land. They're on the border. The next is the book of Joshua. We're going to get to Jericho, that the walls are going to come down. I mean, all of this stuff is about to happen. But for them, and it's interesting in my mind, like they're much further away from Egypt in proximity, but much closer to Egypt in their minds and in their hearts.
Yeah.
And Moses and Aaron are the total opposite. They go to God, which means then for me, one of the thoughts that comes to my mind here is the closer you are to God is the closer you are to the promised land.
Totally.
The further away you are from God is the closer you are to Egypt. So the difference here, going back to verse 6, they come to God and God speaks.
Exactly. And like you said, they described the place like, hey, this place can't grow anything, which means that they thought about it. They thought about, hey, I wonder if this,
is this the promised land?
They thought about maybe this is where we should just settle down and settle, right? There's no settling with the promises of God.
Yeah.
And no duh, of course this place doesn't bring forth fruit. Just like
this is not your home.
It's equally as insane as saying that we are going to we could live here forever and the human race would be just fine, right?
No.
That ain't happening. And if you've looked at the news lately, we definitely know that it ain't happening. Moses goes to God and he finds the answer from God at the tent of meeting, which is the place that Moses always goes when there's need of advice from God and God speaks to him. Do you want to move forward?
No, on verse 6, one more thought here. I love the fact that as a leader, he takes the problem again. Like that one thing that's consistent about Moses is that whatever challenges he faces, God is aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
Not because obviously God knows everything, but the fact is that he brings it to God.
Yeah.
Now, I remember seeing something you had mentioned, and I do the same thing too. As a pastor, sort of maybe an internal thing here, just that's probably going to be, you've already made yours public. But for me, one of the things that I enjoy is going to my church when no one's there, and praying for my members.
It's huge. It's effective not just because prayer works, but for your mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to get mad at the people you pray for.
It is.
And I love the fact that Moses takes this approach first.
Mm-hmm. And he's used to doing this, right? And he's talked with God not just about the people, but about, I'm sure that the relationship that Moses has with God, that Moses would like to be in the promised land too. Like this is his
He's
life.
Probably very impatient.
Yeah, this is his life goal, man. Like you want to be that guy that crosses the finish line with the people. Like this is what your whole life has been for. And he's probably frustrated.
Yeah. Verse 7. Why don't you go ahead?
And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take the staff. We're all familiar with what that means. And assemble the congregation, you and your brother, and tell the rock before your eyes to yield its water. So you shall bring water out of the rock for them and give drink to the congregation and their cattle. And Moses took the staff from before the Lord as he was commanded. Sounds familiar.
Pretty good so far.
Yeah, this sounds familiar.
Burning bush.
Water has come from rocks before.
Yep, same staff. He has parted waters with it.
Yeah, this ain't nothing.
Water turned to blood.
Yeah, this is the same staff that pierced the hearts of the pagan gods of Egypt and killed them.
That's right. Blood came out. The river turning to blood. The imagery. I saw what you did there.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. Like Moses has been trained for this, and the people are used to seeing this. This staff symbolizes like not just the power of God, but the mercy, the provision, and the mediatory role of Moses.
You know what I wonder? Because when I look at this imagery too, one of the things that I think about is Psalms 23.
Oh, yeah.
Your rod and your staff, they comfort me.
Mm-hmm.
For the sheep, right? The presence of the rod it does something to the herd.
Yeah.
Like just seeing it, it means something. There's something significant about it, and sheep recognizes the rod and the staff. So what I wonder here is, I wonder why God had him take, the rod, right? Which at this point in my imagination would have garnered mad respect, right?
Yeah.
This was the thing that the brother brought before Pharaoh. This was the thing he lifted up before the Red Sea. He's been using it so often, and I imagine in the minds of the Israelites, it's a visible symbol of God is about to do something crazy.
Yeah, this is going to Israel's Smithsonian, right? Like
Yeah.
this is a national symbol for them as the congregation. And you're right, like this has become Psalms 23, like you mentioned. The rod is mentioned, and the rod not only beats off wild animals and is used, but it's also used to prod the sheep in the right way, right?
Yeah.
Which is what in Acts when it says it's hard for you to kick against the pricks. That's what it's talking about. It's talking about a shepherd's like staff that is used to
guide you,
guide the animal, right? So the staff is used for correction for the congregation as well as going against their enemies, which is good. But also with Psalms 23, it talks about leading through the valley of the shadow of death, right? And the children of Israel are used to that. It talks about making them food in the presence of their enemies.
That's right.
God has given them food in a vile and hostile environment.
Yeah.
I was reading this week. I'm preaching a sermon on the prodigal son here this Sabbath, and there's a huge correlation between Psalms 23 and the prodigal son.
Interesting.
There's a famine, right, and in the land, just like there is in this story. And even though the prodigal son is experiencing a famine, what's at his father's home? There's a fatted calf.
Yeah.
Right? So the father is not experiencing the famine because the father never experiences famine, right? The prodigal son has done everything he can to get away from the shepherd, but the shepherd is always waiting for the lost sheep.
That's right.
And so God, Psalms 23 here it's a beautiful concept, and Moses is that symbol of the shepherd. He's a type of Jesus, and we've talked about it all season.
Yeah. And I think that connection is profound, right? Because Psalm 23 is all about leadership, which is what you see here.
Totally.
God is the ultimate leader. He's the true shepherd, and he is talking to Moses, who is an under shepherd, borrowing from Peter's language, and he's telling him, "Hey, this is what I need you to do. You've prayed about it. Here's the answer. Take the rod, which is a symbol of my leadership, not yours, my leadership."
Yours,
and we've talked about this before. That God commandeered the rod. It's his rod now.
Totally.
And it's like, so the language is like, take my rod and raise that. You have it with you, but ultimately what God does, he doesn't tell him, use it. He tells him, speak to the rock.
Yep.
Like, have you ever wondered why God told him to bring it? Right. Even though he
don't use it, but bring it.
Yeah.
I think it's a symbol of comfort, like we've been talking about, right? It shows that the authority of God is still with Moses. I think that's why. And also, the heart of Moses, like you said, I'm going back to the Psalms 23 thing that you mentioned. Verse 2 of Psalms 23 says, he makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. One thing I love about he leads me beside the still waters, which we're going to be talking about water coming from this rock. We've already talked about it, but I read a book about Middle Eastern shepherds, and did you know that the certain breed in the Middle East of sheep can go without water for a few days, and they were herded, and so there were times that the sheep had to go from a water source to a water source, and they would get crazy thirsty in between. Just like cattle, you talked about those westerns earlier, sheep can smell water from a few miles away. And when they're thirsty, just like cows can stampede when they smell water, it's kind of funny to think about, but sheep do the same thing. But the breed of sheep that is in the Middle East, it's unique in that there's something physiological about the sheep. The sheep cannot drink water that's moving fast. They physically can't. The sheep have been documented, if they could be dying of thirst, but if the river is moving too fast, the sheep will stare at the water and die because they can't drink water that's moving quickly. And so it was the custom of Middle Eastern shepherds, and still do today, to make pools within rivers that were flowing quickly. And they'd have to work hard to do that. So when it talks about the shepherd making the still water, it took a lot of effort for the shepherd to pile up rocks to slow down the water.
Wow.
So the sheep could drink water. So it just shows the provision of the shepherd and the work of the shepherd to make the sheep even capable of drinking the water. It's complete reliance on the
There's
shepherd.
a lot of intentionality. There's a method that's utilized. There's a lot of patience in putting that together.
All of that.
And care, because you don't want the sheep to die. So you're going to make sure that they get the water they need.
Exactly. And Moses has been doing this all the time. And now the sheep need water.
Sheep need water, man.
The sheep need water.
Let's see if he makes a pool, if he follows the instructions.
And most of our listeners know this story.
Yeah.
But let's keep reading.
Yeah. Then it goes on. And Moses took the rod from before the Lord as he commanded him. And Moses and Aaron gathered the congregation together before the rock. And he said unto them, Hear now, ye rebels. Must we fetch you water out of this rock? Question. Hear now, you rebels.
Yeah.
Imagine preaching that sermon.
Well, God never told Aaron or Moses to talk to the people at all.
No. Told him to talk to the rock.
Yeah, don't talk to the people, talk to the rock. But Moses,
You can tell he's frustrated.
rightly so.
It's fascinating to me that I think a lot of times what we don't recognize, and we talked about this today in the class we're taking, unresolved grief can show up in the way we treat people.
Is this Miriam's death that's partially causing
Who knows?
this?
That's a potential. That's
40
kinda what I'm
years
aiming at.
rebellion.
Yeah, frustration.
Yeah, you're calling me to court? Rebellious people? Like, who do you think you are?
Let me put you on the witness stand.
Yeah. Because let me break this down for you. A few years ago, God was going to kill all of you.
And I stood in your place. I was in the gap.
Yeah,
I
the
stood
only
in the
reason
gap.
you're here is because of me, you fools. I get it. Like, I get what Moses is thinking, man. Like 40 years, I haven't even lived that long yet.
You've
Neither
learned
of you.
nothing from all these sermons.
Dude. Yeah, so Moses is hot.
Yeah, the brother is that is which also shows the humanness of Moses. The prophet, the patriarch, and so much more. The man who is the humblest man. Like all these different imagery. The brother broke. Now we do see glimpses of this early in Moses' life, right? The brother had a hot temper.
Yeah,
right?
go back to Egypt.
The brother had a hot temper, and I think the interesting thing that I see oftentimes is you can never think of yourself too highly, right? Because we're just one event away from losing our temper that we thought we had overcome. Yeah, we're one event away from going back to that very same sin that we thought was there, and the difference in that is when we take our eyes off Jesus, man, it becomes so problematic. And it's easy to read scripture and judge the people we look at and have these assumptions like, oh man, crazy, like I would never do that. We walk away with these thoughts, not realizing that we have the same capability. And it's fascinating to me. It's fascinating to me. Like even the history, some of the things that I've read, and I'm like, bro, the church back then was just, in the wilderness. I'm like, man, these people are crazy. But then you read what happened with Adventism in Nazi Germany, and you're like,
yeah, we blew it. 40 years ain't long in the grand scheme of things.
And when you read about what happens in Rwanda, the genocide there, like, yeah,
the Cold War.
Yeah,
how we responded
we
to
can
that.
make some significant messes, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, and like you said, Galatians 6, when it talks about judgment, it says, Galatians 6:1, consider yourself. You're also tempted.
Yeah, Galatians, you said 6:1?
6:1.
Read Galatians 6:9.
6:9, eh? Man, I just left there, brother.
Yeah, I see you left very quickly.
I left quickly because I got a few things open here. Galatians 6:9, eh?
Yeah.
All right, Galatians 6:9 says, and let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. Moses is weary.
Yeah, Moses is a weary guy.
Yeah.
Right, so again, and it's interesting, that parallel between 6:1, right, the judgment, and then the 6:9. I think what we get to that place of judgment when we haven't recognized, or we don't recognize how weary we are, and we don't, when we don't stop ourselves from getting to that point. And I don't think we're capable of stopping ourselves. I think it's complete dependence on God. And in this case, Moses had the instructions. God told him exactly what to do.
And I'm glad you brought that up, the complete dependence upon God, because this is something that Jethro had warned Moses about early on. He's saying, hey, you are not the end-all be-all here. God is definitely using you, but you need to delegate some stuff because you are becoming a little bit too bottleneck. Like you're the bottleneck here, the spiritual bottleneck. Yeah. And part of that was necessary because the children of Israel didn't want to communicate with God. And we get that God had a good relationship. But remember what we just read here in Numbers 20, verse 10. Hear now, you rebels. And then Moses says, shall we, referencing Aaron and Moses, shall we bring water for you out of this rock? And so often when we're frustrated at church, we're frustrated with complaining people, we often take that very personally. And so Moses, like we just were kind of joking about, who do you think you are, kind of a thing? Who do you think is the reason you're alive? When there's seemingly nobody else working, it's very easy for us to kind of throw a pity party over that. No one's working like I'm working, man. Like I'm grinding. Like I'm here for the cause of God. Like I'm doing as Moses is like, he's putting himself in the place of God. Should I bring you this water?
Yeah, I think I have a theory. I don't know, we sometimes in the podcast talk about theories.
Yeah, some of which are wrong.
Yeah, I think when we are weary and frustrated, we become petty.
Oh yeah. I don't even need to be weary sometimes to be petty, but yeah,
totally. but even more, right?
Even more so,
even more so. And I think this is a petty moment for Moses. You know, like he wasn't supposed to talk to the people.
No,
you know, but so that remark was totally unnecessary.
Oh yeah,
it was uncalled for. Like, you're not God, bro. You're not God. You're not told to open your mouth. But yeah, I mean, this remark is very petty of Moses, and I say that word because I feel that the world right now has popularized petty leadership.
Break that down.
I'm going to be specific. I think, and I don't know. Well, I kind of know where your thoughts are on this, but I feel like what's most common now, like for example, look at I've
just say it. I know what you're going to say.
When I read what the president posts,
sure,
on X or some of those platforms, I'm like, bro, this is so petty. You know, when you look at political debates, it's all petty.
I've seen your drive. I know your drive. I drive so much farther than you. Yeah, it's a little petty.
It's also petty, bro.
My hand motion was pretty spot on, wasn't it?
Yeah, our listeners should have seen your head motion.
By the way, we're not trying to be political here. We're using a modern day example.
But it's not. He's not the only one as a leader. I mean, like I'm saying that it's very common nowadays, right? The way that the conversations are happening and the way that they're shaped now, it's pettiness that wins, and it's the most petty person that gets the position.
How much noise can you make?
Yeah, how much noise can you make, right? And I see. I mean, I don't know what you think. I just don't know if there's a coming back from this. Like I can see a future where the pettiest leader, I'm hoping that it changes. But the way that things are, because there's an element of entertainment in pettiness.
Oh, it's fun.
It's kind of interesting, like, and I see this among, young people sometimes when you're having a conversation and you're confrontational and it's bold and it's upfront and it's very straight.
Yeah, it shocks your opponent.
And it shocks, like the response is often, ooh.
What a burn.
Yeah, what a burn. Right. And I think there's some entertainment value in that.
Totally.
But the point here with Moses is you can tell that Moses loses sight of the character of God.
Absolutely.
Because God is never petty.
I was just going to say, this never happens in church leadership, does it? The pettiness.
Well, explain. Go ahead. I know the answer to that question. But,
it's an obvious answer,
I think our listeners know the answer too. Yeah.
But yeah, I think we can definitely look at the political realm, and we obviously see it there. Sometimes it's a little more subtle in church work, whether it's laity or whether it's clergy. But it's definitely there. And Moses is showing us this pettiness. And yeah, Moses is known for loving the people because he loves God. I mean, that's what Jesus says, right? Love God, love others. And the only way that we love others truly is by loving God, because God gives us that kind of love that we need to love people that are rebels. Mm-hmm. I mean, when Moses called the people rebels, he ain't wrong.
No, he's not wrong.
Like, they're rebellious people, and God has called them stiff-necked.
Yeah.
Right? But that's God's prerogative.
God didn't tell him to say that.
And God is the judge. Yeah. Moses here is not the judge. He's the mediator.
Yeah.
He's a type of Christ. And so when your mediator is saying you're just a rebel.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Have you ever heard petty sermons?
Yeah, I heard a sermon once. I was a young man. I was like a kid. I was like 13. Never forget it. And there was somebody in our church, and there was a church disagreement, and it was a small, petty thing. And anyway, guy gets up there behind the pulpit, and he preaches from his perspective just on that conflict. And I'm talking pounding the pulpit with the fist kind of a thing. That's what we call a bully pulpit.
Yeah, I've seen it too, man. My follow-up question to that is what is your response to that usually? I mean, you've seen it. I see it now too, right? The self-victimization a lot. Like usually that kind of leans towards the petty.
Yeah.
And yeah, everybody gets called a rebel. When you when you get petty, it's like everybody else is sinning except you when you get petty. But like, what does that make you think of? And you had mentioned earlier, do we see this kind of thing in the church? And yes, the answer is definitely that. But what is that reflection? Like, what are your thoughts when you see that happening?
A lack of conversion. I think we all have to, as pastors, I know for me, I have to guard myself from being petty when it comes to dealing with people and the pulpit, right? And also recognizing that the state of my heart is very similar with the hearts of those that are being petty or rebellious. And like we just said, consider yourself, lest you're also tempted. And so, again, it's very easy for us to look what was it? Was it Elijah or Elisha that was like, I'm the only one that's left? And God's like, bro, no, there's not.
That was Elijah.
Yeah, there's a few others out there.
I got,
Let me give you the number of how many there are.
Yeah.
We just get we talked about isolation today, you and I. Yeah, we tend to isolate when we don't think that anyone else is as good spiritually as we are. And that isolation of being full of pride. Ready for this? I think that, within our church, there is and rightly so, there's a movement to move to the country, right? In the last days.
Careful
right?
now, because I live.
You live more in the country than I do, which is a surprise. Yeah, it's so funny. You're not used to the country yet. That's where you are.
No, I'm used to the country.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I grew up in the country.
But
go ahead.
Okay, so living the life in the middle of nowhere, right? And the churches in the middle of nowhere are tiny, right? Because there's no one around. Are people really wanting to move to the middle of nowhere because that's what they believe is right in the last days? Or are they moving into the little middle of nowhere simply because they think they're better than everybody else?
I think there's a lot of that, right? There is a lot of that, the latter, obviously I personally, that's not where I'm at.
I understand. And there's you should do that.
I think part of that too, and I'll add this, is like, yes, right. Living in the country, even that, I will say living in the country as a Black person is very difficult, depending on where in the country you are. So,
yeah.
So that's a real thing. But at the same time, I think, if you move to the country to simply get, brownie points, per se, in God's eyes, you've totally missed the message.
Well, that's my thing. Like, so moving to the country is one thing, and I might get some flack for this, and I don't apologize, I guess. You see this as a pastor, people church hopping, as in, all right, I've been a part of this congregation for a couple of years, and this church isn't any good, so I'm moving to the next one. Then a couple of years later, well, this church doesn't have the truth like I do, so I move to the next one.
Oh,
and
like I do.
Yeah, like I do. I said that purposely. And it's like, okay, if that's our attitude, then I question if you really do have truth, because part of being a Christian is getting along with people. And if you're not able to get along with people to the point that you're just self-isolating in a guise of being super godly, then you got a heart problem, man.
Yeah, I think, I think what's maybe a good point of connection here is that Moses had to learn to live among rebels.
He did. And so do we. There are rebellious people in the church all the time.
All the time.
Your church might be rebellious that you're a member of.
All the time. And I think that's the difficulty, right? We're we're definitely ready to strike some people over the head with the rod and the staff.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're so rebellious. And when I think rebels, so I might get in trouble for this conversation. But when I think rebels, one of the common discussion right now is regarding the laws of the land.
Okay.
Right? The rebellious, right? When you think rebellious, it's like you are breaking the rule, right? That's in my mind. Can we agree on that definition of a rebel?
Lawbreaker.
Yeah, lawbreaker.
Sure.
The common discussion right now is regarding immigration,
Okay.
right? And what I see often is, and I don't know how you feel about this, but it's very disappointing for me when I see certain responses regarding the treatment of those rebels, right? You flee your country, you break the law, you're here illegally in this country, and you're deemed a rebel, right? And I see things happening by ICE, and you're like, bro, like as a Christian, I don't know if I can agree with that treatment, right? Yes, on the side of legality, yes. We agree on the basis that the country needs to keep.
You're talking about sanctity of life.
Sanctity of life, right? So when you see that, I'm saying I see church members justifying that treatment by simply saying, well, they're here illegally. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we might have slightly different views on immigration, and that's not the point of this podcast. I know it's not the point that you're bringing up either. But you're talking about leaders, law keepers.
Correct.
That should be held
and law enforcement too.
That should be held to a standard, and that standard is always higher for one that is a man of the law or a woman of the law, right? And obviously, the Bible talks about sanctity of life. That isn't even up for discussion.
And it doesn't matter where you are on that spectrum. Like even if you're a rebel,
Yeah, absolutely. And so I don't even need to talk about, the rights of immigration or not, or borders or any of that. That's not the purpose of this podcast. And we've promised not to be political in that sense here. And I know that's not what you're getting to. But when you see hypocrisy to that point, in which one of the main points of law enforcement is to protect and to serve, and part of that is to protect and serve even the ones that are criminal. You talked about Westerns again. Often one of the sheriff's main jobs was when there was a criminal, it was protecting the criminal from the lynching mob.
Correct.
And that criminal may have deserved death according to the court of law, but justice needed to play out in the correct manner, because that's what society is. Society is justice being played out in a correct manner and the law being abided by. So when law enforcement or ICE or pastors or church leaders or bosses that are dealing in those things in leadership, when they act above the law,
as if they are a law unto themselves,
God doesn't even do that.
Yeah.
And God is the one that gave the law. So, it should bother you. I think it should bother Christians when we see mistreatment of individuals, guilty or not, of whatever crime it may be. And it could be a horrific one. But due process and justice is the name of the game. And that's a biblical concept. And we claim that that is the concept that this country specifically has been built on.
One of the things, and the reason why I brought that up is because there's a tension that I find in Matthew 25.
Okay.
Where Jesus talks about, when he comes back, he's going to separate the sheep from the goats. And the primary question that he asks is, like people are saying, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? Did we not do all these things? And Jesus is like, depart from me, I never knew you. But then he mentions, I was in prison and you didn't visit me. I was hungry and you did not feed me. And so, what's fascinating about that is, I remember several years ago, a professor, good friend of mine who works at a university here in Michigan, invited me for a meeting, and we all went into this county jail, and we were sitting in a circle with prisoners.
I've been there too, yeah.
All
Not
right.
that one, but I've been in them.
and you're sitting in the circle and you're having this conversation and you're hearing the discussion and the experiences, not of the prison but their life stories. And one of the things that happened in that moment to me is that it helped me to recognize that a lot of times my perception of people is not true, right? Because of the distance that I have from them. You know, like outside of those walls, before I entered, I had a perspective of prisoners, for example. You know,
Sure.
like you always, your perspective is always the worst. It's never the best. Like we don't think of the best in each other, just being honest in that regard. But when you listen to the stories and you're like, bro, that person is also a human being.
Totally.
You know, that person, and when you hear the stories of, man, like it took this for God to get my attention, for example, and you're like, I can resonate with that, you know, because God got my attention too. Maybe it's a different place, maybe it's a different way, but that person is also a human being. And I think a lot of times what we miss, and maybe Moses does this too, is that when you assign a name to somebody, you miss the possibility, depending on what that name is, you miss the possibility of them being saved by God or them being cared for by God.
So ICE is cared by God?
So what?
So God cares for the people behind masks at ICE?
Of course.
And the immigrant?
He wants to save them too.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and the thing, I think we missed the point, right? We missed the point. Because I remember, right, and you might remember this too, right, when we were talking about that period during the uproar and uprising regarding law enforcement, and there was this idea circulating around, defund the police.
Yeah, a couple years ago.
Right, a couple of years ago. And I'm like, bro, wait, if you do that, guess who's going to be most affected?
Mm-hmm.
And you think, well, defund the police, like, what does that mean? Like, people are using the same argument today, by the way, to say defund the church.
Oh, yeah.
It just sounds different.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But what happens when that happens? Right. You're talking about churches in the country, the small little town that's trying to survive.
Of which we
That's
pastored.
the little light in that little area that's about to be closed because somebody is petty about the way they deal with certain issues. So again, I think these ideas they sound good, but in reality, they're very dangerous.
Well, you define what justice is. You define what truth is.
And when you get to that point where you're the one defining justice and truth,
red flag.
yeah.
Yeah.
You yourself are a rebel at that point.
And you're doing what Moses is doing here,
Yeah.
and which is ironic. And like you just said,
which
the rebel, it's pot calling kettle black.
yes, Moses is rebelling while calling the children of Israel rebels.
Directly against a command of God, right?
That's the thing.
And we just talked about the children of Israel not learning their lesson after years. Notice and we haven't even talked about it yet, and we've been going on, but we haven't even talked about the actual action of Moses in verse 11.
Yeah, let's go. Verse 11.
Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock with his staff twice, and water came out abundantly, and the congregation drank, and their livestock.
Okay, I got a problem with this.
I hope so.
He rebelled,
Mm-hmm.
but water came out.
Yeah, you'd think that the water would be, well, there wouldn't be any; it'd be empty.
And maybe the picture that's being painted is he struck the rock once, nothing happens,
Could be.
and he continues down that line.
That's a theory.
I mean, yeah, that's.
But
what
yeah,
is.
it very
Just
well
that
could be.
Because it is. I can't imagine him doing it, twice real quick, or maybe he did. Who knows?
I'm sure he took a big swinging for the fences swing too.
Yeah. The brother takes his anger out.
Yeah, Cal Raleigh doesn't even have a swing like
on
that.
the rock.
Yeah.
Like that was the risk of doing that was breaking the rod, actually.
It's breaking everything that it stood for. We just talked about the rod being a symbol of mediatory. We just talked about the grace of God, comfort, and now it's the authority is being abused.
Yeah. What happens when a leader abuses authority? What are the consequences of that? I know we're going to talk about the accountability, but let's talk about the consequence. Because here you find...
Water still came out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, here's what I'm processing with this. I think what God is showing here, and is something that we can't overlook, is the fact that God is saying, as much as the children of Israel needed grace for rebels, I'm going to give this big rebel some grace too.
That, and God is not going to withhold his gift for the people based upon his leader's negligence. So Moses,
He's not going to cause them to suffer
Moses
from lack
rebels,
of water. Yeah.
but that's not the people's problem.
Yeah.
God still blesses the people, and he'll deal with Moses later,
Yeah. Which is
privately and publicly.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's no escaping accountability, even when the miracle is still worked.
Miracle still works. Baptisms still happen.
Yeah. Moses probably thinking, man, I'm good.
Yeah.
There's nothing to it.
Success, right?
Yeah.
The people are happy. I vented a little bit. We're good. It's interesting here. The word there for striking the rock.
Yeah.
It's a Hebrew word, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it correct. It's nakah, and it means to strike, attack. But it's hitting somebody primarily with
Somebody
an
or
intent
something.
to kill. With an intent to kill.
Ooh.
This is a word that describes what Moses did to the Egyptian all the way back in Egypt,
Yeah.
40 years prior, when he saw somebody being abused with tyranny, and he lashed out and became a hypocrite
Yeah.
in defining justice himself.
So you know what's interesting? Before you get to the striking, there's another word that stands out, and the Bible uses the word "lifted up."
Okay.
Right. That word "lifted up" in the Greek and Hebrew.
Hebrew.
Hebrew. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it too properly. It's rum, and it literally means to exalt oneself.
Yeah. So he's exalting himself with violent
Force.
That's what Moses is doing. And again, this is what Moses did back in Egypt.
And I think again, that's the danger, right? Because
And he's a leader, which makes it even worse because
Yeah.
he's in the eyes of the people. And with responsibility comes accountability.
when you exalt yourself with force, the consequences are immense. I mean, they're immense. And pardon me for doing this again. I think again, and usually what I do when I see things happen, I wait. I evaluate. I research in order to understand before making a conclusion. But a lot of what I see nowadays in society is a lot of force and a lot of self-exaltation.
Yeah, listen,
Right.
man, I've read a couple hundred pages of the Epstein files too.
Yeah,
I hear you.
so, and the hypocrisy, like you clearly see the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And the powerful are usually not held, there's usually very low accountability
It's angry.
in those cases. And so, yeah, I mean, and I don't know. There's a struggle there, man, because it's like you break the laws, but then you beat others for doing it.
Yeah. They say don't get to know your heroes because when you get to know your heroes, you become very disillusioned quickly.
By them, yeah.
And history has done that. History has taken some of the big. I remember the disappointment in my young mind. I was very much taught when I was growing up the classical stories of founding fathers.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about George Washington, when you talk about
Some pieces are left out.
yeah, there are pieces that are left out that you find out later. And when you really get to know the hero, they don't really define the word hero like you thought that they did. You look at people like Gandhi, there's some questionable things about even someone like that.
Then there's MOK.
You look at MLK that didn't even believe in the deity of Jesus or the virgin birth,
Yeah.
and some other questionable things, and whether that was CIA propaganda or
Well,
not.
there's a piece of that for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But when you look at your heroes, and I really don't care who it is, if you dig deep enough, you're going to find things that are going to disappoint you.
And this is why it's important to not put anyone on a pedestal,
Yeah.
right?
Except Mr. Rogers. Don't
Mr.
take him from me.
Rogers. Yeah, Mr. Rogers. Yeah, we haven't heard anything. The shoe hasn't dropped
Yeah.
on Mr. Rogers. By the way, I read his book. Just
Dude,
so amazing.
Won't You Be My Neighbor? So
yeah, so powerful. But yeah, so again, I think we have to be very, very careful that, if we're going to assign the name rebel, that we're not rebels ourselves.
Yeah.
And if we aren't rebels ourselves and that relationship with God is intact, then really our mouth will be closed. I love what Martin Luther did, not MLK, but
Another hero that had some flaws.
Yeah, who had some flaws. But bro, have you ever read the stuff he wrote about the Jews?
Straight up anti-Semitic.
Yeah. So again, the more you research, it's like, whoa, like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
But he wrote something during a time when his followers were using force to rebel.
More of a Zwingli type of a.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, there are students on college campuses that were doing some really crazy things, breaking things. And Luther was like, dude, like,
ain't it?
Don't even call yourself by my name, right? Because people are using the name Lutheran at that time.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, what you should be doing is he actually, the letter is a sincere admonition against insurrection.
You shared that with me.
Yeah. And it's wild the stuff that he brings out there. And I think, again, what he brings out, first of all, is that self-reflection. If you're going to be dealing with rebels, make sure you're not a rebel yourself.
Yeah.
And that's the anti-hero picture. Is like, if you're going to save the day, don't be a Peter Pan,
Yeah, and a lot of anti-heroes are being idolized today.
Exactly, right now.
I mean, yeah. And also, just a little bit of advice. If you see yourself uttering the words, they deserve it, or he deserved it, or she deserved it, be very careful about that. Because
no, I think more than being very careful, I think that's cause to repent.
That's like, crazy dangerous.
Yeah, you should repent for saying even stuff like that.
Yeah, especially when there hasn't been a full judicial trial, because you can say that the person deserved being beaten because they broke the law in coming here. You can say that Charlie Kirk deserved it because of the things that came out of his mouth. You could say that Martin Luther King deserved it because of the thing. You can go on and on. Mm-hmm. If you're uttering the words, well, that person deserved it. Wow. I didn't know.
I think there are strong doubts about your Christianity if that's what you're saying. Because if you think about it, man, like there's no statement that is as antithetical to Jesus than that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, think about what we deserve. Exactly. Like, if God had that perspective, bro, like, where would we be?
Absurd.
He took on death himself. He's like, bro, I know, like, and I love what Ellen White says, like, he was treated as we deserve so that we can be treated as he deserves.
Yeah. It's
right. He flips the script.
He flips the script.
Whereas we're saying, like, yeah, man, that person over there, I mean, yeah, they deserve that. They deserve what was coming to them. And I remember some of those responses about Charlie Kirk, and the same thing could be said about George Floyd or, some of the others.
Sure.
And again, it's wild to me, right, that Christians get into these kind of conversations. And man, yeah, I have strong doubts about your Christianity if you start thinking that way.
Yeah. And like you said, look in the mirror, bro. So do you. And so do I.
Yeah.
And if people studied us the way that history books study our heroes or anti-heroes, we'd be canceled too. And so would you, our listener. Sure. You'd get canceled real quick.
Yeah.
The good thing is that that's not how God deals with Moses. He doesn't cancel Moses, but
there are consequences.
He does hold him accountable.
Yeah.
And he does it privately at first. And then Moses is responsible to admit it before the people.
Yeah. Verse 12. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying, because you believed me not, to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this congregation into the land which I have given them. God, bro, took them out of leadership.
At the cusp of finishing the job and crossing the finish line. This is the worst punishment imaginable for Moses.
Here's the thing, man. God is not afraid to bench his people, man.
No,
like, you may think you're like the real deal, like you're up front, you're like the good quarterback. You got some really good arms, like you can throw really well. You hit your target every time, you hit your mark. God will bench you.
He'll bench you.
Take away the glory from him, he will bench you.
Yeah, he absolutely will.
And I'm happy he does, because Some of us should sit on the bench, dude.
It's good for us to sit on the bench sometimes. And I think you and I have been in points in our life where we could have been there, but we've been benched.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And Moses is going to have to pass the ball to Joshua. And he's been intentional about making sure Joshua's fit for that. But I don't think it was in Moses' wildest dreams that it would be Joshua that took the people of Israel into Canaan.
Yeah.
Moses is hit, and Aaron dies, and so does Moses. And we kind of come full circle to where season 1, our very first episode ever, God at a Funeral.
Yep. Where he dies on Mount Nebo.
We're all the way back to the beginning. And God doesn't tell Moses that he's got such a prize awaiting him. God is so merciful with Moses. But at the same time, he lets the people know, I don't take rebellion from anybody.
Not even my leaders.
Nope.
Yeah. You know, the Bible says that rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft.
It's Zechariah, right?
Yeah. Wait, is that Zechariah or is it Samuel? I think First Samuel, no?
I'll check it. Keep going.
Because I think it was Samuel talking with Saul. Yeah. That to me, like that comparison, right? We think, and it's interesting, right? Because
First Samuel 15.
we cater to rebellion at times. We respect it. In a lot of places, we admire it. And in some cases, we praise it.
Oh, yeah.
But to God, rebellion is detestable. And the brother dedicated his career, right? Like there are some people, man, who are like this, man. They give their lives to pastoring the big church. You know, like that's what they live for. And God is like, right before you get there, man, I'm going to bench you. You know, there are people who study their entire lives to become doctors. And right before they get there, God is like, I'm going to bench you. And I think, you know, the struggle with that, and we often struggle with that, but what we don't see is that God realizes that, especially for leaders, the one place that is the most dangerous, where I believe it's a really hard thing to save us, is still leading in our rebellion.
Yeah. And God has called every one of us listening or a part of this conversation to be leaders for him. Yeah. And some in different roles or whatever it might be. But yeah, I think that to me, what you said is the sentence of this episode. God will bench you. God will bench you.
And I'm grateful that he does.
Yeah, and for Moses, he gets benched from life.
The brother has to lay down, dude. That was his last game. But imagine going out like that, man. Like imagine going out as a flop, you know, like.
Fit.
Yeah.
Fit. Wrote the Bible.
Brother's benched. Now, we must say, and you have to, again, we cycle back, right? Season 1, episode 1.
Seems like so long ago.
Yeah, God at a Funeral. We say Moses was benched in an earthly sense, but the brother was elevated.
It's promoted.
And promoted in a heavenly sense.
After repentance.
After repentance, of course. And I love the fact that when Jesus considered the task in front of him, because he was about to die for rebels. Jesus was about to die for rebels.
Dying as a rebel.
You and I. Dying for us, man. And I love the imagery of heaven calling Moses to be there in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
The resurrected Moses to come and encourage Jesus, who is now tempted perhaps to say, "Here now, you rebels. Must I die for you?"
Mount Transfiguration, as soon as he's done with that. Hey, let's build a statue of this.
The rebels, man.
You mean a golden calf?
The rebels. Well, my dear friends, this is now the end of our seasons with the life of Moses.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, Pastor Garrett and I, we've talked about Moses so much that we are just...
It's been a journey. We're not tired of Moses, but we're tired of it.
We've talked about this so much.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. It's been a blast, and thank you for your support. thanks for everything. And season 3 will be out. We might drop an addendum at some point, but season 3 will be out in May. We have the trailer out already.
Yep. Trailer's out. Go check that out. And I concur with you on that. We've learned a lot. This is our first time doing this. We never imagined that we would be doing a podcast, but here we are. And God has opened a lot of doors and given us some opportunities, and we are very humbled by that. And our prayer, and we really hope and ask, in fact, we're begging you to keep praying for us, because we don't want to be rebels ourselves.
Yeah.
We want to always be humble. We want to be used by God, but we don't want pride to ever interrupt that usefulness.
Yep, I agree with you. And God Inc. has some exciting things that are happening in the future that I think you're going to be excited about as well. And I don't want to end on this, but I'm kind of going to. If you could, just for me, if you've been enjoying this, if you could just leave us a review on wherever you listen, that would really help us. It helps get our podcast out a little bit more. And not that we care so much about the God Inc. branding or the podcast itself, but we really want to promote the Bible and truth and Scripture. And if that could be promoted, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I concur with that. Well, as usual, friends, I'm Jermaine.
And I'm Garrett. Hey, thank you so much for listening.